This is the Brella Community Services Podcast with Michael Morgan and Raj Sahota, talking about the I'm Still Me project, a support talk about dementia.
I'd like to welcome you to Brella Podcast number 6, and my co-host is Raj Sahota. We have soldiered through these podcasts and learned and grown as we have done them. And what would you say, this is just you and me chatting without your professional hat on, what have we learned from having these disparate group of people who've come to join us and share their stories? What have we learned? What have you learned?
What have I learned? I've learned that there is hope and people are navigating the system even though there's no real path, but we're getting there. There is hope at the end of this tunnel. Everyone's doing a fantastic job of getting through everything that they can, but there's still lots of work that needs to be done.
Well, I mean, and that's a good lesson. Raj, I wonder, we always begin because some people have never seen the podcast and they don't know who we are and what we do. How would you like to do the run through as to who is Brella? What do you do? Why are we here? And what would we like to get out of having people on the podcast to share their stories?
You got it. All right. So Brella is a non-for-profit society based out of South Surrey, White Rock. We have 3 locations of adult day programs, one in Newton, one in South Surrey, and one in Guildford. We are working at raising awareness around dementia and reducing the stigma that surrounds it. The I'm Still Me project was funded through the Public Health Agency of Canada, and it's part of the Dementia Strategic Fund. And we were lucky enough that we received this grant. Unfortunately, it is coming to an end very soon, but we have learned quite a bit, and we're still kind of forging through, getting through, raising that awareness, getting people together, creating those safe communities. And it can't be done without everyone else that's been there to support us. We are run by grants and funds, so donations are accepted on our website, www.brellasociety.ca. You can hit that donate button now and help keep projects such as this one going for as long as possible. This project has been one of my favorites to work on, honestly. It is relaying the stories of people. I'd like to say that it's the extraordinary lives of ordinary people. And we're just touching on everyone's heartstrings and coming together as a community, letting people know that although there is dementia diagnoses out there and it seems like it's bleak, but there is hope and we're getting there.
And you've been going out into the community, is that correct? You've been holding sessions and having coffee and basically inviting the community to come in, and don't be afraid to ask questions, because the statistics, as you have been telling us, are pretty daunting. Per every 15 minutes, somebody's diagnosed.
Yes, that is correct. Every 15 minutes, someone over the age of 65 in Canada is diagnosed with dementia. That is up from 9, which was in 2020. So as of 2023, that number has jumped to 15, and we're only seeing that number increase.
So it would qualify as a healthcare crisis.
Definitely. It would be deemed as the silver tsunami, which is coming in, and it is coming in strong. We are starting to do as much as possible and protect as many people as possible, raise awareness about it, get the word out, but it's without donations, we can't keep things such as this awesome program going.
Yeah, true enough. Speaking of awesome, our 2 guests today are within the broadcast community and the wider archival broadcast library are 2 Hall of Fame members. Campbell McCubbin was the voice of news, and many of the people that you watch or hear now on any platform learned how to speak, how to read the news, how to tell stories, how to communicate from both of our guests. And Campbell McCubbin is, I mean, he just has to open his mouth and you know, this man probably was born with that voice. Ruth, his wife, is in her own right a very well-respected member of the news organization. She was in Vancouver for many years. I'm not going to reveal their story. How they're sitting together on the same couch is a real good romantic story, but I'm only going to hint at it, foreshadow it, and I'd like to introduce them. Good morning, Cam and Ruth. How are you?
Wonderful.
Yes, and hear that, she's wonderful.
So it's wonderful to see you both. My delight at having you on is because our group, you're a little young for that group, I think, Ruth, but I think maybe Cam and I fall into the same demographic. All around us, much to our amazement, age is taking a toll. For many people, it's losing their loved ones or people that they were long-term colleagues. One moment they're there, the next year at their funeral. And you need to develop a point of view. You and Cam decided to turn the whole model upside down and became teenagers again. Tell me about that.
Okay, who should start? You, I think. You'll start. Okay, I'll start.
I think that I just saw something this morning from Carole King. You've got to get up every morning with a smile on your face and show the world the love in your heart.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we do. We share this wonderful life that we have, and we make sure that in whatever social media we're in, and it's primarily Facebook, whatever we're in, although we are truthful about our lives, we let our lives shine, and we share the majesty that's out there, from the tiniest little blossoms that are showing up as buds on a tree to the sunrises that just overwhelm us. We share that with everybody, and our both of our pages and our mutual page are very uplifting. And that's what people say. They go to our pages all the time to get that. They know that they'll find comfort. They know that they'll find beauty. And that's what we do.
I think the backstory is interesting as to why. You asked why we're sharing this screen together and our lives together.
Yeah.
It all started in a little radio station. Yeah. But it did. It started at 1275 Burrard Street, the old radio station of Vancouver, CKWX in Vancouver, in about 1978.
Yeah, we can't remember when we first met. It's sort of like...
Yeah. But she was 20, and she's proud of saying Cam was ancient.
He was 30.
He was 30.
Oh, yes.
So we worked together. We worked together at CKWX. I was doing morning news most of the time there. And we were side by each on the news desk. And that went on for about, 2 or 3 years, I guess.
Yeah.
And then our lives just separated apart. We were, I was like a father figure or a big brother to her at the time.
Yeah.
And fast forward to, 40 years later, I had no idea where Ruth Adams was, now Ruth McCubbin, but I had no idea, nor did I, quite honestly, much care. Like we were living separate lives quite nicely. Ruth was married, I was married. I'd been married for over 50 years, and both of us happily married. And then time began to take its toll. And I was on Facebook one day, and Julie Brown, a mutual friend of ours, another broadcaster, had posted something on Facebook, and I was reading through the comments, and I saw this name 40 years later. Ruth
By
Adams.
this time, I was widowed. My husband
That's
had
right. You'd recently
died.
been widowed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I said, Ruth Adams. I remember Ruth Adams. I think, is that the same one? And I private messaged Ruth, and I said, are you the same Ruth Adams that I used to work with? She said, yes. So we became Facebook friends about 8 or 9 years ago, 8 years ago, 9 years ago, something
like that.
Yeah, and then time took its toll, and my wife of over 50 years passed away, and very shortly thereafter,
Instantly, I was over here.
she said,
So you got to explain where over here is. You don't just
we're on
live anywhere.
Vancouver Island.
Yeah.
Yeah, Arbutus Ridge,
Arbutus
right?
Ridge, Vancouver Island, and we had been almost like daily pen pals on Facebook for probably not 9 years at that time, 6 years at that time. Every single day, conversing back and forth. So we had not only a relationship from 45 years before, but we had the relationship that was ongoing and developing.
Yeah.
And it was like an old-fashioned courtship in a sense. You know, a very he was still married, I was widowed, and I still thought of him as like my big brother. So he was incredibly supportive, very, very kind to me.
Ruth came and visited us on the
Yeah,
island, visited
yeah.
myself and my wife.
Sort of checking it
And
out, were you?
no, not at all. Not at all. I really have to stress that our relationship at the time was,
Yeah.
it was
You
like
look to me like
we're-
Sean Connery and Diana Rigg, so obviously there must have been some sparks.
we were very good friends. And um, after Marilyn died, I just had to tell him that I really did love him very, very much. I didn't just love him as a friend, but I really truly loved him. And I could also see what I call it. I could see the casseroles circling around this recent widow, and I thought, I better just say something and, you know, just make my feelings
Speak your
known,
mind.
because,
Yeah.
you know, as you age, you don't really care what other people think. It's more important how
Yeah.
you feel about each other. It's not important what it looks like socially.
And this was right at the beginning of COVID.
Yeah,
Right
that
at the
was the
beginning
other
of
thing.
COVID.
Oh my.
Yeah. And
So
time is precious. Time is precious.
we both knew
Yes.
that, you know, we both lost our spouses, and things can happen like that. So we knew, you know, why waste time? And we were both afraid that I'd be stuck in Vancouver, where that was where I had moved to from Toronto. I'd be stuck in Vancouver, and, you know, we would never see one another. So
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it's I'm talking about time being precious. I think there's really an important topic for this forum. At our age, at almost any age these days, but at our age, we've all had, if not dozens, certainly lots of people leave before their time, after their time, and none of us knows when that time is up.
mhm.
So this could be my last day on Earth. Hopefully not, but it could be. I don't know. Could happen. Am I going to ruin this day on, you know, they talk about the stupid little things that are going to aggravate you. No, it's put it in perspective. You know, if this is my last day, I'm not going to ruin it with, you know, worrying
Peggy.
about the little
Yeah.
idiotic things on Facebook or anywhere else.
Yeah.
And that's so
That we all do.
yeah, my
Raj,
mantra
I
is
wanna
enjoy
bring-
every day.
Raj,
It
I
really
want to
does.
bring you in because these are two very rare guests who have a point of view that is rare and very much needed. Did you want to ask them anything, or would you like to comment on their kind of uplifting point of view, and how much of that do you see in the work you do?
That is missing in the work that we do. We try to stay as positive as possible, and we encourage caregivers, especially with those whose loved ones are further progressed into their dementia diagnoses, to do exactly that, to live in the moment.
Mhm.
You know, they are mourning the loss of their loved one while they're still alive, and that's extremely difficult to do, because once they do pass away, you're mourning them again. So you have to learn to live in that moment. You have to learn to love the new person that they've become as you're mourning who they were. So a lot of the relationships will change. In our past podcast, we were speaking to a daughter, and she was saying how with her mom's dementia diagnoses, she's no longer her mom, but they're best friends now.
Mhm.
So that's something that's very important, that people understand that, you know, as you age and as things change and dementia and disease takes a toll on people, they may not remember who you are. They may not really remember the relationship that they have, but they'll remember how you make them feel.
Mhm.
So That's what I love.
No.
I love that you guys are living each day as it comes.
It's pretty
Love it.
encouraging.
Yes, it's very encouraging. It's something that everyone strives to do, but we get so caught up in the rat race of daily life that we forget about it.
Yeah. And I
Tell
think
me, were you caregivers, either one of you?
Yes.
You said you were widowed. Did that involve some of what we're talking about, where you have to care for someone as they diminish?
Oh, more than that. I was the primary caregiver for my mother for 32 years. She was, she'd had a massive stroke, followed by another massive stroke. And I was, she was in a hospital bed at home. Um, she was on a feeding tube for the last 20 of those 32 years.
Oh dear.
The last 15 years, I had suctioning equipment. And the last year, she was actually on oxygen. We had a Hoyer lift. So there was really heavy duty nursing involved. And I'm not a nurse. But I learned from nurses, and we had exceptional caregivers. I made sure that every caregiver who came in touch with my mother was the right fit. And if they didn't fit, I'd call the agency. But we had a team of caregivers, one caregiver in particular, for 20 years. So it was just really extraordinary. As I say, my mother had suffered a really dramatic loss 32 years before, but she lived to be 93. And for me, that was just a validation. But also it talks to her spirit. She was an incredibly strong-willed person, in the form of a tiny, very gracious lady. You know, she was very shy. And yeah, anyway, my husband had liver cancer, and he got the call for a liver transplant. The night before the surgery, they did a last minute CT scan, and the cancer had spread to his lungs. So that was
surgery
it.
was off. Yeah.
So yes,
That's terrible. So he had all the hope in the world dashed.
yes, just
Yeah.
ended.
Yeah. This woman is my hero, by the way.
So
Absolutely.
Mine too.
And my whole goal in life, now that we're together, is to repay her and make her life the best it's ever been.
I'm a little princess around here.
Yeah, but that's a new thing.
Yeah, it is.
You've been the handmaiden to the royal family for a long time, looking after their needs. All of a sudden, Prince Charming shows up and tells you it's your turn on the throne.
Yeah. The other thing too about living every day and valuing every minute and is that we're both photographers.
Mhm.
So as photographers, amateur, but we notice the little beautiful things that most people don't even realize are there.
Yeah.
And then we share those, and the rest of the world goes, "Oh, wow." And I say, "You were walking right by that yesterday. You just didn't see it. You know,
Yeah.
we saw it and saved it for you." And that's the kind of thing. That's the way we sort of look at our hobby. And hobbies are important too. Something to.
Well, you bring up the business of observation. I'll bring Raj back in. As a caregiver, and Ruth, you had 3 odd decades of that. You have to be almost a trained observer. Raj,
Yeah.
you're in the trenches. Tell us about the need. I mean, you have to observe your client in ways
Well,
that you can miss nothing.
first of all, if I was asleep, I heard a cough, I'd wake up.
Yeah.
And you can tell by the sound of the cough whether it's something really stressful or just clearing the throat. Now, because my mother needed suctioning, I'd jump out of bed, go and suction her so that she could breathe. And if you walk into the room, you smell. What do you smell?
Yeah.
You know, it has, does the diaper need changing? Is there something else going on? You use your senses. I say that nursing, and again, I'm not a nurse, but I say that nursing is very sensuous. You have to use all your senses. So listening to the breathing sounds, the smell in the room, looking at her, is she really flushed or really pale? I would always touch her. You can feel somebody who's sweating profusely or icy cold or seemingly too hot, and all of that is information. And then out of that information, you make the next move if anything's necessary. Maybe there are too many blankets.
Raj, do you concur with that? I mean, your observational skills. I mean, you're a professional in this. You see a world of clients. Have you anything to add to that need to look and see almost with a sixth sense?
I think it's very important that you look and see with a sixth sense, especially when it comes to clients that are further progressed into their dementia diagnoses. They often get labeled as aggressive, as in they'll hit out. But that's usually due to an unmet need. There's something that's triggering it. Like Ruth said, are they too hot? Are they too cold? Is the person hungry? Are they thirsty? Are they feeling lost at the moment? Are they unfamiliar with their surroundings? If you think about it and you place yourself in their shoes, it would be as if you're trying to get your bearings straight of where you are. And now this stranger's coming up to you and saying, come to the bathroom with me. After the first few times of saying no and they persist, what are you going to do? You're going to lash out. So a lot of the times, especially when we're working with our clients that do have dementia diagnoses and they're further progressed into the dementia diagnoses, it's about figuring out what the triggers are. What is causing that to happen? Why are they lashing out? In the therapeutic field, we do understand that pharmaceuticals and medications are important, but over-medicating a client is also not very safe. There's lots of falls that happen. It leads to them being it leads to them being deteriorated as well. Majority of the time, what will happen is they get labeled as aggressive and they'll be put on sleeping pills or on medication that will cause them to just be drowsy or almost the zombie effect where they're no longer themselves. And that's the last thing we want for anyone. We don't want them to feel labeled or mistreated in any sense, because at the end of the day, they're still them. So why should we have it where a reaction that is caused by possibly something we've done is a consequence that they have to go through now? So they shouldn't be labeled as aggressive. They shouldn't be overly medicated. It just makes things so much worse. A lot of the times when you look into the eyes of someone, you can see that they're just scared. It's someone who's trying to figure out what's going on and navigate the scary world, and they're unfamiliar with where they are. They feel lost. So it's getting
And powerless, I would imagine as well. Powerless is very fearful. The campaign, Cam and Ruth, that we're working on and Raj is guiding is called I'm Still Me. And it's very easy to forget that, isn't it, Raj? I mean, we warehouse people. When you're in dementia, your communicative skills can drop off dramatically.
Exactly.
And after a while, because of who we are as human beings, you tend to forget that person.
Yep.
So I'm still me. What's the core messaging there?
Is that at the end of the day, regardless of whatever your diagnosis is, you are still yourself. You're still a person. It's always person first. So it's never the diagnosis first. We're trying to shift away from the medical model of the world and be more social model, be more person centered and talk about the person first, because it's never about, the patient number 72 with the dementia diagnosis and also has diabetes. That person's name is John.
Yeah.
So it's always referring to the person, not their diagnosis. Because at the end of the day, if you think about it, dementia does make life a lot more difficult. It makes it so that things are just harder, but you need to modify everything as you go, just so this way that there's still autonomy. They still feel like they have some power. They still feel like they have some choice taking choice away from a person is extremely detrimental.
Mhm.
And that's the last thing we ever want to do.
Yeah, yeah.
Ruth, were you given signs, even though your mother's long-term convalescence? Did you see signs of her, even though she'd suffered this catastrophic injury? Um, was she lucid? Was she able to communicate, or did you have to search deeply to see what was
Her
left of her?
eyes. I would always see it in her eyes. I could, there was um,
Sparks
a
and magic.
twinkle or
Yep.
something, Um, and I looked for that. I looked for that even when she was really, really sick in hospital, with whatever might be going on. I would look at her face and really look at her eyes. Um, there was a time she had not spoken for probably the last 10 or 12 years, and certainly I had not heard her say my name. Um, so, and there was a point where I didn't know whether she even really recognized me or if I was just the nice lady who she saw every day or if
Mhm.
she knew who I was. But I did notice one time when I arrived at the hospital, she really brightened up. She recognized me. I knew that, even though she didn't say my name or anything else. So yeah,
Yeah.
that was kind of nice. And one time she actually spoke. She said, "Hello." She was French, so she said, "Hello." And that just totally floored me. I was not expecting that at all. So,
I have one piece of advice for caregivers, by the way, and it's the piece of advice that when Ruth's mother passed away, I was communicating with her, and I said, she was at that time also an administrator on a Facebook group for widows, um, counseling, grief counseling, etc. So I said to Ruth, I can't tell you anything about grief and your mom passing away and how to deal with that. That's you know about that. But the one piece of advice I can give you is don't feel guilty about feeling free now, because that's really important. Because a lot of people, I think, might just get confused over that. They go, "Oh God, I don't have to stay home anymore. Oh, I feel so bad about that, and it's this mixed emotion."
yeah.
And that I think was really important because you deserved some freedom.
Yeah, there was certainly after my mom died, I was at Eaton Center in Toronto and I'm going up the escalator and I got this feeling in my belly that like, oh my God, what time is it? There's that I have to be home. And then I went, I don't have to be. I don't have to be anywhere. I can just keep going up the escalator and keep looking around and shopping. And it was it was
Emancipation.
No, for 30 years, no
Yeah.
holidays, no travel, no nothing,
yeah.
because you can't go away. She
So-
postponed.
And you became the parent.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then we come, mom dies and I had an Airbnb, so I had steady guests. I couldn't leave.
Mm.
And when I could finally leave, I came out to visit you and Marilyn and other friends in BC. But since then, I have not taken any big trips. I mean, we have
With COVID.
COVID stopped
Yeah,
us.
yeah.
And then we had other plans. Oh yeah, we had this is going to sound really we had to spend our money redoing the elevator. It was 35 years old, so we had to put in a new elevator. So there goes
That'll
that
suck up the
holiday.
money.
We live in a standalone house. It's a freestanding house, but it happens
It has
to
an
be
elevator.
has a small elevator in it. So,
Great planning for our future.
Yes. Yeah, you got
we've
that covered.
and we've also got a huge shower that we put in. Level entry with all the bars and everything. You would love it. I mean, it is
Oh.
like,
Is it one of those rain showers that's like walking
yes,
out in the
but
jungle?
the actual shower space is enormous. It's
4 feet by 8 feet.
Oh my God. Yeah, we could
Yeah.
all go over to your house.
Or we could have the
Exactly.
whole football team in.
But that
Tell
again,
me this.
it's like,
I have a question for you, and I'll begin with Raj. Do you think that there is anything that particularly about your character, your personality, the being that you are, that has led you to be in the field you are, difficult as it is, giving care and succor to caregivers and families? Do you have to be somebody special, Raj, to do that work?
I think you do. I think you need to be someone who is patient, someone who is understanding, and someone who's been through things that they can relate with. So
Mhm.
empathy, sympathy, optimism, and positivity, along with being hopeful, plays a massive role in what we're doing. I'll share a story of how I actually got into the field of rec therapy. It was years of taking care of my grandfather who had dementia. So, sorry, I didn't know I was gonna cry.
All right, that's what this is about. We're sharing.
Right.
We are. After he passed away, I actually felt a void. So I started volunteering at the local care home
Mhm.
and fell in love with the field of rec therapy. And I realized I was doing this my entire life
Wow.
unknowingly. So what better way than carrying it forward? Went to school, got my diploma, started working, went back during COVID, finished my degree. And I actually ended up with a degree in therapeutic recreation. And then I completed a advanced certificate in behavioral analysis, just because I was fascinated with the way that people behave and the way that the brain functions and just the whole aging process in geriatrics. And then this project came along and I was like, it's like my entire life was working towards this moment in time. So everything that I did literally led me to where I am today.
Wow.
And you thank your grandfather for leading the way.
Always, always. I always believe that our grandparents helped us take our first steps.
Yeah.
So it's our responsibility to help them take their last.
A beautiful sentiment. Cam, you haven't said too much about the caregiving that you were involved in.
Can't see that, Michael.
Cam's showing something.
Oh, what's that?
That's talking of grandparents. That's my grandfather and me.
My,
And it's
wow.
it's the guy I don't remember. I don't remember him because he died shortly after that. But I treasure this photograph.
Well, yes, it's one of a kind.
Yeah.
So, Cam, how did it come to be that your wife, she passed away? Was there a lot of caregiving from the moment that she recognized that life was coming to a different point, and when she actually passed? Did that involve you?
There wasn't, yes, but there wasn't really a lot of caregiving. You have to understand, my wife she was a pragmatist. She often said to our doctor, if I get to the stage where I'm, got no hope, just give me the big black pill and I'm out of here. That's the way she was. And that's exactly the way she left. Basically chose the maid route. And it was, it was emotional, but she actually made it easier for me because basically it was, I'm out of here. I don't need this, I'm gone. And she was a heavy smoker, very heavy smoker all her life.
Yeah.
And the worst part of it was you couldn't just get that. Sorry, phone call. But the worst part of it was you couldn't convince her otherwise. It was like I'm just this is the only pleasure I've left in my life. So she smoked right up until the day she left.
Do you find it heaven sent? And perhaps that's a bit lofty, but I'm going to use those terms. That you'd go from a pragmatist who ended her own life. My sister did the same thing and demanded we all show up. The maid people came in and away she went. And yeah, you don't get over that anytime too soon. In fact, I'm still processing what the heck happened.
Yeah.
But the point that I'm making is you, somewhere in your heart, the woman you really wanted was this woman.
Well,
And that she was delivered to you in what is the prime of your life, because it is. No disrespect to your late wife,
Right.
but somewhere there were doors opening in your heart that you had locked up because you didn't think either you were worthy, or that would ever happen, or that you were too old or too something.
Yep,
But it
I
did.
think you nailed it. You nailed it exactly. The reason I often use the term about the universe unfolded as it should for us.
Yeah.
No matter what you believe about that. I went from a person who I lived with and loved for over 50 years, but we were exact opposites in every single way. Went from
Yes.
that to being my mirror image. And, we share every moment of every day.
Yeah.
Literally share, we get lonely when we're
Apart.
I go to the store. Oh,
Yes.
welcome home.
Never mind that. If he's in the living room and I'm in the kitchen, I start to feel lonely.
Yeah, so we are living our best lives,
Yeah.
and appreciating that fact every single day.
Yeah.
Years ago, I don't know why I bring this up, but I guess everybody's got an emotional moment here. It was a goal of mine, which, by the way, I did not accomplish, to become enlightened. It was that time. It was the 70s. I was a rock and roll DJ. I didn't necessarily get much spirituality out of that. And I ran into a chap named Ram Dass, who wrote a book called Be Here Now.
Yeah.
And I never really understood that, because when, as you know, in the broadcast industry, it's all about time. They sell time, you're on time, you hit the network, and it's all about time. But really with no deeper understanding of the value. And it was Ram Dass who pointed out to me, he said, how long do you think this moment is? And I'm still trying to answer that. This moment is timeless. The only reason we put any restrictions on it is because we have a watch. And that's not very valuable. So the moment that we're sharing now is an eternity. And he taught me that you can live in that moment, you can bathe and enjoy and rejoice and celebrate in that moment. And there doesn't need to be a need to wonder what's in the next.
Yeah,
Mhm.
And
absolutely.
you seem to have achieved this.
Yeah. Well, I have to keep reminding Ruth sometimes, because Ruth is a worst case scenario kind of creative person, and she goes, "Well, what if this happened?" And I said,
Yeah.
Or, I love looking back. But I don't look forward too much. I don't, say, oh, I hope I live for another 25 years. I do. Ruth does.
I say that.
But
Yeah.
I want to enjoy this moment right now, and whatever I have, I'm going to value, and it's important. It's really important. The small
Raj,
things.
I think
really
I'd
big.
like to ask you this. When you ceased to mark time with accomplishments, or you cease to become fearful that maybe you'll lose this or lose that, or somehow or another you'll wind up on the heartbreak of not having, what gets blended in there is faith. Is there faith in the business you're in?
I think there's faith in every business. At the end of the day, everyone turns to God at some point or another, or a higher being. I read a quote somewhere, it was actually in Punjabi, and it said, in times of need, even the blind look up.
That's good. I like that.
Yep. So
And when and in the course of your day, because you and I have had discussions, and I know you live with an extended family, which is really the fuel of the love that you live in. You bathe in that love. You walk in your house and everybody loves you, and it's very nice. I have 2 Cocker Spaniels who try to fill that void. But is it the faith that sustains you on those days when sadness and the unfairness of some things overwhelm you?
it is knowing the differences that I'm making in people's lives, along with knowing that I'm on the right path that I should be on. Deep down somewhere, I think I know this is where I'm supposed to be, and I've kind of landed up there. But it's seeing just the spark in someone's eyes, just how Ruth had said when she walked in and her mom, she lit up. It's seeing that. It's,
And
I was
said,
out.
hello?
Yes, yeah. I was out at the local Samiamu Mall here, and one of our clients actually recognized me from across the courtyard and came over
Oh, wow.
and said, "I know you." Couldn't remember
Wow.
my name, but recognized my face. So it's those little things. It's, the job is it's emotional. It's very difficult. Losing clients, it's extremely difficult because we have these relationships that we build. We become their caretakers for 6 hours out of the day, whether we see them once a week, twice a week, or 3 times a week. They become part of our little family. And it's hard when we lose someone. But knowing that we've made differences in people's lives is what keeps us going.
Yeah.
Beautifully said. I'm going to leave the last word to Cam and Ruth with a very much a thank you for taking the time out of your day to come and share your story with us, because it's well worth hearing. I'm a follower of yours on Facebook. If I ever want to know how they're doing, I look at their photographs, and there's always an eagle in it. There's always a hummingbird, or there's a sunset, or there's the passing of ships in the channel outside their home. They don't, I'm sorry, I'm speaking to you in the third and fourth person. You don't miss a single thing.
No.
The funny thing is, you talk about, if you ever want to know how we're doing, that's what my son says. He says, "So how you been doing?" Oh, he says, why am I asking this? I know exactly everything you guys do.
Yeah, it's true.
But
Any
you're
lasting
right.
words you'd like to live? People looking at this are going to say, "I want that." How do they get that?
Well, probably some people have been noticing this guy back here.
Yes.
The 7-foot tall robot made out of old computer parts, not by me, but by a senior citizen, a retired jeweler who was a heavy-duty mechanic in White Rock.
Just like from the Wizard of
I have
Oz.
been to a garage sale of his, but I bargained and bought this guy years and years ago, but it took me 10 years to get him. He doesn't do much. He lights up a little bit. But he is, this jeweler saved thousands of parts from old computers, organized them all, and built this beautiful creation. I wish I could show it to you close up, because it's all little transistors and resistors and all of
Well,
those.
it's got no
all in
right
patterns.
angles. It's all curved. And
Who else has a 7-foot robot in their media room?
It has a little dog called Bite.
BYTE.
Oh, of course he does.
Thank you.
Isn't that lovely? Well, I want to thank you both. I'd like to do this again very soon. I would like to be invited to come and see you, but you don't have to issue that invite.
You too.
I mean,
Absolutely.
everything seems to be happening over where you are. Thank you both. You are thoroughly delightful angels of mercy for us to speak with. Thank you for being on this podcast.
Thank you for the invitation. I can't believe the time's up.
Yep. Raj, it's always good to have you on this show. And as we get to know each other more and more, I realize what a profoundly deep person you are. And it's a joy to share this with you. So thank you to everyone, and keep up the God's work.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye, Raj. Bye-bye.
This was the Brella Community Services Society podcast with Michael Morgan and Raj Sahota. For more information, go to our website at www.brellasociety.ca.